Okay, Jaguars, picking up where we left off in from Through My Eyes on paragraph 16 here. The judge couldn't enforce his order in time for the start of school in September, but he set a new deadline for Monday, November 14th. The anger all across New Orleans convinced Judge Wright that things might grow violent. He asked the U.S. government to rush federal marshals to New Orleans to protect the black first graders. There were four of us in all. There was a fifth girl originally, but her parents decided at the last minute not to transfer her. Three of the remaining children, all girls, were to go to a school named McDonough. I was the fourth child. I was going to integrate William Frantz Public School, and I was going alone. On Sunday, November 13th, my mother told me I would start at a new school the next day. She hinted there could be something unusual about it, but she didn't explain. There might be a lot of people outside the school, she said, but you don't need to be afraid. I'll be with you. All I remember thinking that night was I wouldn't be going to school with my friends anymore, and I wasn't happy about that. My mother took special care getting me ready for school. When somebody knocked on my door that morning, my mother expected to see people from the NAACP. Instead, she saw four serious looking white men dressed in suits and wearing armbands. They were U.S. federal marshals. They had come to drive us to school and stay with us all day. I learned later that they were carrying guns. I remember climbing into the back seat of the marshal's car with my mother, but I don't remember feeling frightened. William Frantz Public School was only 5 blocks away, so one of the marshals in the front seat told my mother right away what we should do when we got there. Let us get out of the car first, he said. Then you'll get out, and the four of us will surround you and your daughter. We'll walk up to the door together. Just walk straight ahead and don't look back. When we were near the school, my mother said, Ruby, I want you to behave yourself today and do what the marshals say. We drove down North Galvez Street to the point where it crosses Alvar. I remember looking out of the car as we pulled up to the France school. There were barricades and people shouting and policemen everywhere. I thought maybe it was Mardi Gras, the carnival that takes place in New Orleans every year. Mardi Gras was always noisy. As we walked through the crowd, I didn't see any faces. I guess that's because I wasn't very tall and I was surrounded by the marshals. People yelled and threw things. I could see the school building, and it looked bigger and nicer than my old school. When we climbed the high steps to the front door, there were policemen in uniforms at the top. The policeman at the door and the crowd behind us made me think this was an important place. It must be college, I thought to myself. Once we were inside the building, the marshals walked us up a flight of stairs. The school office was at the top. My mother and I went in and were told to sit in the principal's office. The marshals sat outside. There were windows in the room while we waited. That meant everybody passing by could see us. I remember noticing everyone was white. All day long, white parents rushed into the office. They were upset. They were arguing and pointing at us. When they took their children to school that morning, the parents hadn't been sure whether William Frantz would be integrated that day or not. After my mother and I arrived, they ran into classrooms and dragged their children out of the school. From behind the windows in the office, all I saw was confusion. I told myself that this must be the way it is in a big school. That whole day, first day, my mother and I just sat and waited. We didn't talk to anybody. I remember watching a big round clock on the wall. When it was 3 o'clock and time to go, I was glad. I had thought my new school would be hard, but the first day was easy. When we left school that first day, the crowds outside were even bigger and louder than it had been in the morning. There were reporters and film cameras and people everywhere. I guess the police couldn't keep them behind the barricades. It seemed to us to take a long time to get to the marshal's car. Later on, I learned that there had been protesters in front of the two integrated schools the whole day. They wanted to be sure white parents would boycott the school and not let their children attend. Groups of high school boys joining the protesters paraded up and down the street and sang new verses to old hymns. Their favorite was Battle Hymn of the Republic, in which they changed the chorus to Glory, Glory, Segregation, the South will rise again. Many of the boys carried signs and said awful things, but most of all, I remember seeing a black doll in a coffin, which frightened me more than anything else. After the first day, I was glad to get home. I wanted to change my clothes and go outside to find my friends. My mother wasn't too worried about me because the police had set up barricades at the end of each block. Only local residents were allowed on the street. That afternoon, I taught a friend the chant I had learned 2, 4, 6, 8. We don't want to integrate. My friend and I didn't know what the words meant, but we would jump rope to it every day after school. My father heard about the trouble at school. That night, when he came home from work, he said I was his brave little Ruby. All right, so guys, I want you to take note of what we read and make sure that you complete the comprehension check. For the assignment tomorrow, we will be doing a reflection on this piece. So I look forward to seeing what you guys write. Have a great day.